imagine that we travel through time, 2,000 years before. We belong to a group of people called the Ephesians. We live in a large city known for what we only recently realized were sinful practices. Even amongst our own people, our usual pastimes weren't considered positive. Because they are fun. But that's a bit of the problem. We were raised in this culture, and the generations our families embraced this culture. We've only been trying to live differently for a very small amount of time. We still identify with this culture, after all, we're still Ephesians. And if we're being honest, we're still quite tempted to slip back into that old lifestyle. We're not like those Jews. Sure, they needed Jesus' sacrifice on the cross too, but they've been regularly sacrificing to God, cleanse themselves of sin for generations. And we're even really sinning like us. They're all up here, and we're kind of down here. Right? But we just recently got a letter from Paul. You know, that big Jewish boy that God's doing crazy, powerful things to advance his kingdom through. Well, he calls himself the worst sinner, but no, that's kind of a joke, because look at us. Well, according to that very same Paul, despite our past lifestyle and our city's current lifestyle, which he doesn't take lightly, we are now the same in God's eyes as the Jews. We're not the same, but equal. We're equal in God's eyes to those Jews who seem to have it all together, at least comparatively. See, our salvation was 100% a gift from God. Even our faith, which was the only thing we contributed to the equation, that was a gift from God too. We didn't do anything to deserve it. But get this, salvation was also 100% a gift. Jews. They didn't deserve it either. We're on equal ground with the Jewish Christ followers. Apparently there are no second-class people in Jesus' way. No second-tier followers. In fact, Paul says we're all one now, Jew and Gentile. One family because of Jesus' sacrifice and our new life in him. Equal citizenship in God's kingdom. In fact, Paul believes in us so much that he gives us advice on how to resist the temptation of our old lifestyle, because he thinks we can actually do that. It also shows that his optimism about us isn't based on him thinking we're better than we really are. We need that advice. And Paul says we can help spread the kingdom too. He thinks even we can help. I kind of thought the best we could do was just, not get in the way. Not make things worse and just sneak into the afterlife. But he says we can help just as much as the Jews. Since salvation was an equal gift to us all, and we now have new life. Equal new life. Just listen to this one portion. For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this is not from yourselves, as it is a gift from God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Now, we might not struggle with believing ourselves second-class Christians because we're Gentiles, but we often can be tricked into thinking that there's two tiers of Christians based on other things, can't we? Normally with ourselves at the lower tier, particularly when it comes to doing work in God's kingdom. What requirements do we have for these top-tier Christians? Maybe being an extrovert or an introvert, having a certain level of formal education, popularity within a certain group, coming from a family that had it all together, health or a lack of physical or mental illness, excelling at activities that society says you should. So as all women, cooking or hosting parties well or being quiet and agreeable. Maybe something else entirely, or a combination of 10, 20, or 100 different things. What specific requirements do you guys have for what you would consider top-tier Christians? Hold those as we read through the passage again. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, as it is a gift from God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Did you notice Paul says 6 times in this very short passage that salvation is a gift? 6 times in 3 verses. Writers normally only do this if they're good, which Paul was a very good writer, when they're trying to bring the reader's attention to something they consider very important. A way of highlighting without highlighting. So why is Paul highlighting the fact that salvation is a gift? I think in this letter, one of the reasons may be because it's a gift for everyone. It's a great equalizer. No one has ever been good enough to earn their salvation, or even a portion of it. Even those people that seem to meet our criteria for a top-tier Christian, they weren't able to earn their salvation. Salvation is a gift and is always a gift. No one gets to boast because no one is better. Not the Jews, not our ideal Christians. No one. And if this wonderful gift was to equalize the Jews and the Gentiles in God's kingdom after centuries of division, why would we think that our criteria for dividing Christians into best, good, not so good, would stand a chance? Maybe our society does tell us that we should value this type of person over that type of person, and our insecurities scream that we're not good enough. But God says there is no second-class Christians, and He's the only one that gets to make that call. The only one. So since God says we're not second-class Christians, what does He say about us? Let's start with the word handiwork. Other translations use masterpiece or workmanship. What images do those words conjure? Maybe someone in your family spending hours carefully creating something out in their workshop. Maybe Michelangelo laying on his back, painting the Sistine Chapel, which millions will be inspired by. Some of what those 3 words, handiwork, masterpiece, and workmanship, have in common includes the fact that the thing they're describing is never a mistake. They're not applied to something thoughtlessly made or useless things or the rejected version of a thing. These 3 words are applied to things made well, things the Creator is proud of, things made on purpose as well as for a purpose. The second thing to notice here is the inclusive we. We are God's handiwork, masterpiece, workmanship. You and me, and all the other Christians that would consider themselves second class. We are all His handiwork, His workmanship, His masterpiece. We are all, every single one of us, created on purpose and for a purpose. Somehow that for a purpose can really be hard to believe sometimes, eh? At least without diluting our purpose to second-class purpose. But we've already gone over that. There are no second-class Christians, no matter how strongly your insecurities object. We are all God's handiwork. So this purpose, what else does this passage have to say about it? Well, first let's remember Paul's repetition that salvation is a gift. Salvation is a gift. Clearly our purpose in no way is a means of earning our salvation. Salvation is a gift. Always is, never earned, end of discussion, right? So let's hold that as we follow through. Next, let's notice the word good in the phrase good works. Good is not the same as neutral. Good is more than not doing bad things. It's more than staying out of the way of the important Christians doing their important work. It's more, it's positive, it's a word that denotes something beneficial. If we look a little further in the letter, we see Paul has in mind an other-oriented public good, not just a private attitude adjustment sort of good. The good works Paul has in mind here is an active positive in the world, spreading the kingdom sort of good. And this is something we are all created to do. Okay, let's find out some more details about this purpose that might already feel a little bit daunting. At first glance, the phrase prepared in advance may make these good works seem even more overwhelming, but I believe the phrase is more in line with the thinking of Romans 5:8. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Remember, the main reason the original Ephesians thought of themselves as second-class Christians was because of their status as Gentiles. Saying these good works were prepared in advance would suggest God was preparing these back when there was still a divide between the Jews and the Gentile. Back when he argued that being a Gentile still mattered, and in a negative way. Therefore, while we were still sinning, Christ died for us. And while we were still on the outside, looking in, God made a place for us to contribute his kingdom work. This place of contribution, of joining with God in the work he is doing in the world, these good works, they're not prepared after we've proven ourselves. They're prepared before, when we still have every logical reason to doubt ourselves. It's almost as if God believes in his ability to create well, and in his ability to be strong in our weaknesses. The last phrase I'd like to examine is for us. These good works were created with each of us in mind, not somebody else. Good works prepared for me were prepared for me. Good works prepared for Jane were prepared for Jane. They don't require that we have a sudden switch in personalities, or, although they will generally feel like a stretch or a challenge, they won't require a different past or a different route through our past. He knew what we would go through by the time we got here. He knows who we are, who we were, what we've been through, and how we've responded. He knows and he prepared good works in advance for us to do. Not because we need to earn our salvation, but because there are no second-class Christians, and we were all created to join in his kingdom.